Hey, Tom here from the Runcestors, and this is our long-awaited review of the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4. Let's take a look. The Saucony Endorphin Pro 4 costs £230 or $225. It weighs 221 grams or 7.8 ounces for men in a size 8, and the drop is 8mm. The Saucony Endorphin Pro 4 follows the hugely popular Endorphin Pro 3 and adds a new dual-density midsole foam. That midsole combines a top layer of the bouncier PWRRUN HG foam used in the Endorphin Elite with a bottom layer of PWRRUN PB used in the Endorphin Pro 3. Saucony has also added a new sockliner into the shoe to add even more bounce to the ride. In addition, there's an updated lattice outsole rubber design to improve the grip, a new lightweight mesh upper that aims to improve breathability and minimise material, and a slightly modified heel design. Like its predecessor, the shoe still uses Saucony's speed roll geometry to promote a fluid transition.
So the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4 fit me really well in my normal running shoe size, the same size I've had across Saucony's range and the previous versions of the Endorphin Pro. The upper is really nice actually. It's got really good step-in comfort for a carbon plate racing shoe. It holds the foot really well tightly if you are going to run fast, even on twisty routes like I have done in the shoe. It's also a very comfortable fit. So yeah, best of both worlds really. I really rate the upper on this, and I would stick to your normal running shoe size.
So fit for me in Endorphin Pro 4 has been very good overall. No issues to report whatsoever post that first run video that we did. I've had mine in a UK size 8. I was a size 8 in the Pro 3, and to be honest, I didn't have any real issues with the fit of that shoe. With this shoe, I think, you know, the changes in the upper do ultimately naturally give you something that feels a little bit more roomy and a little bit more accommodating. It's not giving you loads of extra space, but I think compared to the Pro 3, you may be getting a little bit more there. So if that's something you wanted, I think maybe you do get that here. I was very happy with the space up front in the toes. It narrows nicely in the midfoot to give you that kind of nice hold there as well too, which you want from a racing shoe. And the level of padding is pretty similar to the Endorphin Pro 3, which I didn't have any issues with. There's no internal heel padding, but I never really had any kind of lockdown or kind of heel rubbing issues in my time with it. Similarly with the tongue and the lacing, you get a good lockdown there. I've had no issues of it kind of, you know, moving around. And, you know, we mentioned the tongue, probably massively unnecessary here, but I quite like it as a feature. It doesn't seem to add any kind of undesirable weight to the shoe. So I think based on my testing, if you were go with the size you wear, the Endorphin Pro 3, if you're looking to upgrade from the Pro 4, I think you'll find this shoe should work for you.
So I ran in my regular Saucony running shoe size. That's a US 9.5, UK 8.5. And now the Endorphin Pro 4, I don't find fits as closely as those carbon race shoes with a more booty style fit. But overall, I think the fit here was good. One note, I found the lacing a bit odd and I had to use the top eyelets to get a reliable lockdown, prevent a bit of heel slipping. I also struggled sometimes to get these sort of integrated tongues to sit in the right place, right at the bottom end of the laces here, to make them kind of come up and over the foot and across the top of the foot. Tugging on the tongues didn't always get the positioning correct, and it just felt a little bit odd. I also feel like the tongues are a little bit flimsy and they might break. Ditto the top lace eyelets here that are a bit separate from the shoes in a way that feels potentially tearable. Now when it comes to roominess, I found them hugging but not cramped, with a nice flex in the toe box, decent balance of comfort and security. Overall, I'd recommend going true to size in these shoes.
Okay, so the fit for me in the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4, I'm a size 8 in the UK, this is a size 8. I also had 2 pairs of size 8s in the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3 and had absolutely no issues with those shoes at all. I found them to be fantastically comfortable and were fine for many marathons and races that I did. This is very much the same. It's a very comfortable shoe. There's plenty of space in the forefoot for me. What I would say is that the upper is a little bit tricky. It's got this sort of lightweight material, which is actually quite hard to get a lockdown fit. It's not very reinforced when you do the shoe up. It also has these stretchy laces as well. So what I found is when I put the shoe on and tied the laces, there's a bit of give in it. So you'd actually end up having a bit more space in the shoe than you wanted, especially for a race shoe. So it can be quite tricky to get a lockdown fit in. I found that I do have to double knot it once I've got the right fit, but first few times I put this on, I did have to undo the laces and do them up again because I hadn't quite got it right. But I did seem to have that problem with the previous one as well. But once you've got it right, it is a very comfortable shoe, and I would stick to my size in Saucony Endorphin Pro 4.
Now in testing, I've run 40 miles in the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4. That's a mixture of marathon training sessions from intervals to progression runs, plenty of marathon-paced efforts and faster. I've also clocked some easier miles on tired legs to see how the Endorphin Pro 4 holds up when you're running with a little less pacey intent. Now from the off, the step-in comfort I think is pretty good. I like the fact there's a bit more heel collar padding here than you get in some race shoes, particularly at that kind of back section. You know, some of the race shoes that strip the heels right back can be a rubbing risk. None of that here. Overall, the Pro 4 is about as comfy as carbon race shoes get, I would say, while remaining sort of relatively light on the foot still. It's not a million miles away from the on-foot feel of the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4. Now, once I got moving, it wasn't really a case of love at first miles for me. I found the midsole a bit soft and a little bit ponderous. It provides plenty of cushion protection with a bit of bounce and some life to the midsole, but for me it doesn't have the same immediate punch and energy as some carbon race shoes, likes of the Alpha Fly, the Adios Pro 3. Having said that, nor did the Endorphin Pro 3 really. It was a little bit sort of tamer in that sense. And if that smooth, mildly springy cushion ride is what you like about the Pro 3, you're still going to get that here, and you'll probably like it here too. Now, I did one test run where I ran a set of 6 intervals at 5km pace, swapping from the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4 into the Pro 3 halfway through the intervals in one of the recoveries. And I was really surprised when he did side by side like that to find that the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4 actually, I felt, gave me a snappier, more responsive, lively ride. By comparison, the Endorphin Pro 4, I felt just a little soft, a little less immediate, and I had to work a bit harder in the Pro 4 rather than getting that leg sparing benefit that you might expect from carbon racers, or at least from the best carbon racers. Now, there is perhaps a benefit to that though. As carbon race shoes go, I think the Endorphin Pro 4 will look after you better than most running shoes deeper into longer races, at least from that perspective of delivering cushion comfort and good road protection, you know, keeping away that kind of dreaded foot fatigue. It handles slower paces well without feeling unstable, and that's good news if things get ragged at mile 22 of your marathon. You're not running with that kind of best form that can happen later on. Now, when I ran a 90-minute progression run, moving from 8 minute per mile up to 6 minute per mile, the Pro 4 handled the whole gamut of that well. They may not be the all-out performance at the top end, but you get a safety net at the slower paces, which will suit a lot of runners, I think.
So into that run test, I've done well over 50k in this shoe. Now, it has pretty much landed at the ideal time when I'm having to do a lot of long train runs, but I have used it for some shorter stuff as well. So, you know, my first run was a kind of 80-mile kind of marathon training run, and I had a very good run in it. I think there was a few things I was a little bit on the fence with. I think the main thing for me was, had it lost a little bit of that pop that I think you did have in the Pro 3, but ultimately this is why you should never judge a shoe on the first run. I think once I'd done some kind of track sessions in it, some quicker sessions in it, I did a kind of 5k session when it was kind of reps, and it felt fantastic. There's some bounce there. That speed roll geometry is a real killer, I think, ingredient for Saucony's kind of race shoes. I think it really kind of makes it a shoe that works well when you are running faster and you're running at your race pace. It's a good weight overall as well too, and I think having that kind of PWRRUN HG in here, which I think, you know, I felt was a little bit too aggressive for me in the Elite. I think here, as a combination with the PWRRUN PB, that's kind of bouncier sockliner you get here as well. I think as a combination of things, it gives you that comfort and protection, but it also gives you that responsive feel, particularly in the forefoot, which I think, you know, really kind of excels and kind of maybe pushes the Pro kind of, you know, range on a little bit and maybe where it needed to go. I wasn't sure about it in that first run, but I feel, as I said, put some shorter, kind of quicker runs in it. I do feel like this is a shoe you can run, kind of race in shorter distances, but ultimately I think as a marathon shoe, as a long running shoe, it definitely has all the qualities you want. It is stable, it's bouncy and enjoyable, it's comfortable. I think ultimately the change in the midsole maybe gives it a little bit more of a responsive edge to it, which, you know, you ultimately want. And I think the upper again as well, I think it's probably a little bit more accommodating for more people as well too. Outsole wise, absolutely fine. I mean, durability has been solid overall. I'm not seeing any kind of terrible signs of wear yet, and the grip and traction has been absolutely fine. I've run in dry and wet conditions has been absolutely fine from that point of view. So I feel pretty satisfied as a package about what you're getting with the Pro 4 as a super shoe, as a shoe that you can run long, potentially run marathons in it as well, but also I think for the shorter, quicker stuff as well, it can absolutely work as a kind of a bit like the Pro 3, a daily trainer kind of shoe, for your quick sessions, but also a shoe you can absolutely race in as well. So all very positive. As I said, you should never judge a shoe in its first run, and I had a good run in it that first run, but I definitely feel the more time put in it, I've started to appreciate more what the Pro 4 is, a very special shoe.
Okay, so I've been waiting for this shoe for a while. The Saucony Endorphin Pro 3 was a shoe that I've used for 2 of my big marathon attempts, Berlin and Chicago. I got PBs in that shoe over the course of a year and a half, and it is probably my favourite race shoe ever. So I've been very excited to get hold of the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4, and slightly worried as well, because there are some changes in this shoe which do change the feel of the shoe slightly. The biggest of those is this HG layer in this dual layer midsole, and it does have an effect on the ride of the shoe. I've done about 65k in the shoe so far, but one of those runs was a 34 kilometre or 21 mile run, which it's quite a tasty one. It had 5 times 3 miles at marathon pace in it, which for me is about 4:05 minute kilometres, mixing up my miles and kilometres there. So it was quite a difficult one, and to be honest, I failed to do all 5 sets of those 3 miles at my marathon pace. My legs just didn't have it in them. But that was the first major test I did with this shoe. And what I found of it is that HG layer that's in there, I can tell it's in there. And I think what it does is it adds an extra level of sort of responsive bounce. I wouldn't say it makes it like soft. It's not a softer bounce, but it's more responsive. When you're picking up the pace, so when I'm training in this and doing faster reps in it, I can feel it. I can feel that extra little bit of responsiveness. I feel like there's a tiny bit more aggressiveness in this shoe than what was in the Endorphin Pro 3. Not massively. It's not a major difference. It's not going to completely ruin the shoe for you if you love the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3. But it does have a little bit of a different ride to that. And I also think at slower paces, I don't know how much HG midsole foam is in the back of the shoe over the heel, but I do feel it's a little bit less soft in the heel section as well. I've just been out in the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3s just to remind myself what it felt like before doing this review. Definitely feels a little bit softer in the midsole to me. So what I would say is that it's probably the changes have skewed a little bit more to running faster. When you're running on your forefoot and you're picking up the pace, I can feel that in the forefoot, and I feel there's a little bit more pickup in there. I feel like it's better designed for running a little bit faster, but also I don't think it's as well designed for running slower. We talk quite a lot about the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3 being a fantastically accessible carbon plate shoe, and a shoe that you could use for easy runs as well, as daily runs and for racing, just because it has that really nice versatility. I think the Pro 4 has lost a little bit of that versatility on the easy end. Not massively, it's still absolutely fine, but for somebody that's done a lot of testing in that shoe, I can see the slight difference in that. So apart from that, it's pretty much what you would expect from if you'd experienced the Pro 3. It is a progression of that shoe, and it's only a slight difference. I would say it's minimal, and it's not going to have a massive impact. If you've tried that shoe and you try this, you're not going to suddenly go, this is ridiculous, I don't like this shoe anymore. So for me, I think it's a shoe that has probably just got a little bit more performance level in it for running faster. I'm very much looking forward to using this shoe for Boston Marathon. I think I'm going to use this shoe. I don't think I'm going to use the Nike Alpha Fly 3. And just how it responds to running at that quicker pace. But other than that, very much enjoyed testing it. I think it's a solid carbon plate racer. I think it's still very accessible, and definitely a shoe that I would suggest to people who haven't used a carbon plate racer before. So yeah, big thumbs up from me so far.
So I've done about 60k of running in the Endorphin Pro 4, and most of that was in 2 really big marathon training workouts. Some of the key workouts I've done in my block so far, really hard ones, and I've been really impressed by the shoe. Like, it's easy to kind of underrate the Endorphin Pro at this stage, I think, because it's a bit cheaper than lots of carbon shoes. Saucony has obviously the Endorphin Elite in its range, but I really don't think that should be a stick to beat the Endorphin Pro with, because I think it is a very good carbon racing shoe that has the performance to match or get close to matching the very best shoes on the market. So the first run talked about the first big workout I did in the shoe, where I did 20 times 60 seconds on, 60 seconds float, and then like a 4-mile tempo, and yeah, the shoe felt really good for that. At the faster paces, in the 20 seconds on, where I was trying to push towards 5k, 10k pace, it didn't feel quite as good at the float paces or the tempo pace, which is around my marathon pace, but I think it felt really good all round for a long workout. And then the second workout, it was even longer, where I did 10k at 3:30 per k pace, a park run all out, and then 8k at 3:30 per k pace. So those two stints either side of the park run were at my goal marathon pace. Hard pace for me at the moment, especially early on in marathon training, with the park run all out in the middle and kind of, I think, about 3-4 minutes recovery between each section of the workout. And the shoe felt great. It doesn't have that boingy, springy, propulsive ride you associate with carbon plate shoes. There is a bit of that for sure. You are getting a nice kind of punch, but really it's the smooth rock you're getting here. And now I think a little bit more pop compared to previous models thanks to the PWRRUN HG foam. I really liked the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3. I loved it, especially out of the box, but I felt over time, either on really long runs or actually over the course of the life of the shoe, I just lost a little bit of pop from that forefoot. And I think the firmer PWRRUN HG foam being in there now means it retains that deep into those runs. So at the end of that second 3:30 per k stint in the shoe, I was running well, and I was about 26k into a workout, and the shoe felt really good, really poppy, really lively. Like, I'd be very happy to push that to marathon distance. And I think that's what you're getting, the upgrade here on the Endorphin Pro 4. I think there is a little upgrade on the Endorphin Pro 3 because of that slightly firmer feeling there, which doesn't make the shoe harsh at all, which is where I think it differs from the Endorphin Elite, because with that all PWRRUN HG midsole and the very aggressive rocker on that shoe, I found the Endorphin Elite just a little bit harsh. Like, it came through a bit too snappily for me, and on runs over 10 miles or so when I was actually pushing hard, get a little bit of forefoot discomfort. Haven't had that at all with the Endorphin Pro with this dual density midsole. In the middle of that workout, I ran park run in like 16:40 something or other, around there, and good enough time in the middle of a workout. I was pleased with that, and I don't think the Endorphin Pro is at its absolute best when you're pushing to those faster paces. I think it definitely felt better when cruising at marathon pace, but it has got a good range for a carbon plate shoe. It's not one that you'd put in a box saying this is only a marathon race or only a 5k race or that kind of thing. It's a nice versatile, fast shoe with a rocket that just works really well. It's still aggressive, maybe not as aggressive as the Endorphin Elite, but still aggressive, and the midsole setup is really well balanced to be comfortable but still aggressive and repulsive when you want to, when you are running fast. It is also a very comfortable carbon plate shoe, a bit like the Endorphin Pro for just cruising around. Like, I've already done really slow runs in this as part of warm-ups and cool-downs, but those have been quite long at times, and I've been on tired legs after workouts, and they felt really good in the shoe. I do think it is a comfortable all-round shoe, which is not something that you usually have with carbon plate shoes. So yeah, all-round a very enjoyable run test.
So my verdict on the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4 is that I think it is a fantastic super shoe, kind of marathon shoe, shorter distance shoe as well, a versatile shoe, a shoe that I think ultimately, if you were having to ease off in in a marathon, it would absolutely be accommodating in that sense. And that's really what made the Endorphin Pro 3 a special shoe. I feel like it was a very accessible shoe, and I feel a little bit like the New Balance SC Elite V4 for me, in the sense that I think it's an accessible marathon super shoe, but it is cheaper than something like the SC Elite V4. And I think if you didn't want to spend that top money on a shoe, you're a bit concerned about having an aggressive, bouncy shoe that may not work for you, and you may not like the instability of it, then this would be a good kind of alternative to that shoe. And I think a shoe that can work for your training, work for those long marathon training runs, and also kind of deliver and feel good on those kind of marathon kind of race days as well, with a good level of durability. So for me, I think it's a standout shoe. It feels quick. There's enough bounce in there. I think the changes make it a good shoe, a different shoe to the Endorphin Pro 3. And I think if you can get the Endorphin Pro 3 that worked for you, I still think that's a fantastic shoe. I think ultimately, if you're looking for something that maybe has a more accommodating upper, maybe has a more responsive edge to it, but still has all those qualities of the Endorphin Pro 3, really, then this is why you'd want to get the Endorphin Pro 4. As I said, I think it is a super kind of marathon shoe that's cheaper than some of the other shoes that we've kind of reviewed on the channel recently, and I don't think don't put that against it, because I think absolutely it is a fantastic shoe here, well worth picking up.
So my verdict on the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4, I was worried, I was excited, I am happy with it. I am glad that it hasn't got massive changes like between the Pro 2 and the Pro 3. Obviously, that was a change that I really liked, because I wasn't a massive fan of the Saucony Endorphin Pro 2, but I was worried that there would be another shift and it wouldn't work for me anymore. I think it still works for everything that I want from this shoe, so I still enjoy it as much as the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3. I think it skews a little bit more now towards a tiny bit more aggressive feel because of the HG foam that sits in the midsole. But overall, I think it's pretty comparable with the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3. I haven't raced in this shoe yet, and I haven't done a marathon in this shoe yet, so when I do, that's going to be a big test for it. But for now, I think it's an excellent choice, and I think it's still one of the best options for carbon plate racers out there, especially if you're somebody that's looking for a more natural feeling shoe, something that you can put on Maybe it's your first carbon plate shoe and you want something that doesn't feel too alien on your feet and too aggressive. I think this is probably the perfect option for that, and just feels great. Really enjoyable to wear. So massive positive from me on this review on the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4. Well done, Saucony, for making some slight adjustments and not ruining my favourite shoe.
So I really liked running in the Endorphin Pro 4. I think it's a shoe that's easy to overlook, but I think it is a great racing option for loads of people. The performance is there, whether you're going for very fast times or a bit more relaxed times. I think that's the other benefit of this shoe. I think it's one that will work for probably a wider spread of runners than some carbon plate shoes, because it has got a reasonably relaxed ride. It's got a nice rocker there. It's more natural feeling than some of the really aggressive shoes on the market. It's not really spongy and wobbly or anything like that, but it does move you through your foot strike quickly, keeps you turning over your legs, and gives you a little bit of extra pop now, I think, thanks to the PWRRUN HG foam in the midsole. It's also reasonably well priced for a carbon plate running shoe, and as we've seen with the Endorphin Pro 3, the price does come down quite a lot. If you see the Endorphin Pro 3 available for £100 less or something like that in the sale, I'd still probably opt for that, but I do think the new shoe is a slight upgrade, and if you're looking for it in sales down the line, it's going to be a really strong option for lots of different runners. How it fares against the rest of the shoes in the carbon plate market is always a bit of a tricky one these days, because I do think carbon plate shoes, a lot of them are now offering quite a similar level of performance, and how well they actually suit you and suit your gait, I think, will almost be a bigger determining factor than any particularly objective rating of how great they are. Like for me at the moment, I have three shoes a little bit ahead of the others, which is the Nike Alphafly 3 as a general all-round amazing racer, especially for marathons. The Hoka Cielo X1 I think is the bounciest, most fun shoe, most comfortable shoe looking at marathons. And then the Asics Metaspeed Sky Paris I've been really impressed with so far, because it's so lightweight and yet still nice and bouncy and propulsive. Like those shoes that I would pick myself over the Endorphin Pro 4. But that's not to say this shoe wouldn't work better than for lots of runners than those shoes. And I've gone out and done like the hardest workouts of my block so far in this shoe. It's performed at a level comparable to the shoes I've mentioned there and other carbon plate shoes. I really think you are getting a very high level of performance here, and I wouldn't like people just to overlook this shoe just because it is cheaper than the Endorphin Elite and doesn't have all of Saucony's best foam. I think the way it's set up is really good, and I think it will work for probably more runners than the Endorphin Elite, which I do think is a great shoe, but just doesn't suit every gait, and it's very aggressive, and maybe it won't work for those runners. I think this is quite an approachable carbon shoe, both in terms of price and the ride feel, while still delivering a very high level of performance. So yeah, I really loved testing the shoe, and I think it's a good option for lots of people. I certainly think it's also an upgrade on the Endorphin Speed. Like in the past, maybe the first two generations of the Speed and the Pro, there wasn't a huge gap there. I'd also almost say the Endorphin Speed had a bit of an edge, as a slightly more comfortable shoe that was similarly quick. With the Pro 3 and the Pro 4, I think the Endorphin Pro is clearly the faster shoe, the more aggressive shoe, the better option for racing. And in general, just a bit higher stack, but still lighter, with the HG foam in the midsole gives it a little bit more punch. So, if you're looking within the Endorphin range for the best racer, you don't like the Elite, I think it is the Pro 4. The Speed is that daily trainer vibe to it, obviously. So yeah, really enjoyed run testing the Endorphin Pro 4. I think it's a great shoe people should look at. Probably I have a few shoes ahead of it in the carbon plate standings, but I think it is up there in terms of performance.
Verdict then, with this upgrade, a lot has changed, but much feels the same. If you like the Endorphin Pro 3, I think you're probably going to enjoy the Endorphin Pro 4. I think the look of the shoe is much better than the last generation. That is one step on. But the big question really is the Endorphin Pro 4 better than the Endorphin Pro 3? I would say so, but not much better, or not so much better that I'd buy it over the Pro 3 if I could find the Pro 3 on a good deal. Is it the liveliest carbon race shoe going you could buy right now? I don't think so either. If you're a fan of the Nike Alphaflys or the Adios Pro 3, you won't find this offers the energy spring punch that you get from those shoes, or in fact the directness that you get from shoes like the Vaporfly 2 or the Hoka Rocket X2, or even the new Asics Metaspeed Sky Paris. For me, it's more akin to the ride of something like the New Balance SC Elite V4 than it is those other shoes I've just mentioned. Is it a shoe that many runners will find offers great comfort for cruising at marathon pace, or slightly slower? Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what this thing does as far as I'm concerned. The Endorphin Pro 4 is probably one of the most accessible carbon shoes you can buy. It's really got your back when things aren't going according to plan, or you need to rock back, go a bit slower. For that reason, it might well be one of the best marathon shoes for a large selection of runners. A lot of people, I think, are going to enjoy running marathons in these and racing marathons in these. But I'd also recommend taking a long, hard look at the cheaper Saucony Endorphin Speed 4 as a potential alternative. I'd argue that you're going to get a similar performance for a lot less, maybe a little smidge less cushioning overall, but I think there's not a huge amount to choose between those two shoes, and it's worth having a look.
That's it from us on the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4 review. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click that little bell, and check the channel out for all the other videos we've got coming up. Also, if you're going to Catch 'em Below, you can find a link to our podcast, which comes out at the end of each month. Right, thanks a lot for watching. Catch you next time.